This is the HW2000 point machine, and just looking through the point machine, what we have in the centre is our main drive gears, driven off our gearing system under there, a picture of which will appear next. After the gearing system we have our motor, which is directly connected, and we have our drive for our point handle when we place our point handle in. A heating resistor down here and a small gear here that when we place our handle inside, it breaks the cut-off contact here, stopping the power to the motor. Obviously when you wind the handle, you don't want the handle spinning backwards as the point detection breaks and the motor kicks in to try and put the point detection back. And you can reset that, this small pin on the side here, which pops it back down. So we'll just break that for now. You have an access port cover to get into your brushes on your motor, which I'll show you in a minute. This is an epicyclic gear in here, because obviously the first thing you want to do is to unlock the drive rod, which goes through the locking rod. These are your rods out to your points. So we have the locking rod and the two detection rails. So nearest rail, far rail, or far rail, nearest rail, depending which way they are. And you obviously want to be able to unlock that bar down there first. If you just look very carefully, you can just make out, if I can get in there, there you go. There's the lock down there, the lock stud inside the locking rod, jamming the locking rod solid, so you have to withdraw that first. So that's the first motion of the epicyclic, is to unlock. Then you can finally drive over. You can have the drive ports out to the left or the right hand side of the machine. They are interchangeable, so you can take all this off to spin that round should you need to. The other thing is we have contact assemblies. Now in the contact assemblies, this one's been an old machine, so some of the wires are missing off it. But on the contact assemblies, what you have is your drive contacts. So in this case, this contact here, spring loaded, is ready to make the next return move to power the motor the opposite way. You have your snubbing contacts. When the machine comes to the end of its travel, rather than just bang the stop rails up with the bounce off with the pressure, you slowly retard the motor and use the snubbing contacts to do that. And then finally you have your pairs of detection contacts. So say in, out, positive, negative, to drive your detection relays. And usually, traditionally, when they're up, you get a minimum of 2 mm gap behind the springs there. All standard OBA terminals, and a nice fancy wiring diagram on top so that you can actually fault it should you need to. This one has a electromagnetic clutch in it, 2000 machine. The old 1000 machines had a spring-loaded clutch. You used to tighten the drive plates inside with a spanner to get it to effect. It's not easy to see in here because it's actually tucked under here. So what I'll do, I'll just take this cover off for you. Show you underneath. So there's our gearing assembly, and here's our electromagnetic clutch. It's access port, plug coupler. One thing we do have in here is a diode block, and these come in 2 colours. Well, there used to be 3, brown, pink and white. Standard ones are white, and the plug coupler for that, and also a setting resistor, which should always be tight, which is good, and another heating resistor in there for the actual detection side of the machine. But as you say, these are interchangeable, and obviously this whole plate comes off so you can get at the drive rod underneath. The drive rod's held in with a single pin and split pin down there, which you can just get out once it's out. Once you wind it over, and all these access covers come off as well, so you can get at the lock rods and the drive rods. Just looking here at the wiring diagram, as you can see, this is a 3-wire drive setup. So our common wire goes to A3, which is this purple wire up here on its own, and then the posi and negi go to 7 and 8, which are on the opposite side, which are over here. These are 7 and 8 drive contacts ready to decide which way to change the polarity to drive the motor. This is a much older motor now, just for display I'm showing you, probably off a 1000 machine, ironically. The motors come anywhere between 30 and 110 volts DC. As you see in this particular older unit, what we have is the cowling cover 2 screws and it just unslides. The latest ones, blue in colour, still the same basic overall layout, but in here you have the terminal blocks. On this one, the wires directly went from the terminals through and inside. You had to wire them. On the newer ones, they've actually got a little terminal block in here as well. As you can tell from this older one, it has the spring-loaded brushes. Same affair of the screw that you have to put the little braided copper lead onto, but all this will be plastic. Now, this is a much older machine. It's actually in good nick. It's been in the stores for a good few years. So this is one of the older motors. One other thing to mention as well, we call it the snubbing, but on the 2000 machine now, the snubbing really is the disengaging contacts for the electromagnetic clutch. On the original 1000 machine, the snubbing became very active as actual snubbing. But on the later machines, 2000 machines, they're just used for disengaging the electromagnetic clutch so that it comes up to a nice stop, more than anything else. The snubbing is more for the old 1000 machines, which would just have the friction plate clutch, the dry plate clutch inside. They used to adjust by tightening because they just keep going, so you had to disengage the motor. One other thing, the 1000 machines you can also have as a 4-wire or a 3-wire drive system, but the 2000 machines, they're a 3-wire drive system. I've just pulled the small brush out so that you can see it's actually in its aperture. It's quite free to slide. So once you've attached your braided copper wire, you can slide it in and place the spring holder down upon it. That will slowly keep pressure on it as it works its way in, as it wears out over time.